Well, hello again. I'd like to officially welcome you to Don't Fall into the Execution Trap, Visualization for Smarter Strategy and Slam Dunk Execution. My name is Shelley Hayduck, and I'm co-hosting today's event with Matt Caton, our Director of Customer Solutions.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today.
And today's session is going to be all about capturing ideas and then taking these ideas to fruition in your brain. There's a couple different scenarios. Good ideas, of course, need plans of action. So we're going to focus on execution-oriented and process-oriented brains. But conversely, you might have the best management and your operational team is spot on, but you may not be thinking out of the box, or maybe it's idea generation and innovation where you're starting to lag. So both ends of the spectrum need to come together to build a smarter, strategic brain. And because of the visual properties of the brain, our software is uniquely positioned to guide you through all phases of that journey. So I'm going to get started. The first brain I want to talk a little bit about is our brain called going from thoughts to results. And I do want to let you know, happy to share this with you guys. You can get all the icons and wallpaper, all that fun stuff. You can email me, but this is actually a template brain that we have. So if you go to import and select template brains, this is the brainstorming brain here. Or when you start a new brain, you can actually get to this brain as well by selecting show template brains and clicking on that and opening that. So if you guys want to do that with me, you can, or you can just listen, sit back and relax and get some ideas for creating your own brain. So let's start off with brainstorming. Obviously, the brain is an ideal brainstorming tool because you can visualize ideas, and so you can jumpstart projects, plans that are maybe just, lagging, or where you could use a little bit more creative energy. So in this particular brain, we want to talk to you a little bit about not just how to use the brain to do it, but key operational rules that are important. So what you can do as an individual is start idea dumping, which is literally creating thoughts for any idea you have in your brain. Or you can do this as a group through Team Brain, where you're all synchronizing each other's ideas. Or you can even just throw your brain up on a projector in your company conference room and do it as a in-person group session where you're all throwing out ideas and you have one moderator who's actually going ahead and capturing the thoughts in the brain. So if you're doing that in more of a group setting, and also for yourself, because sometimes we can be our own worst critics, there are several rules, and these rules are not rules that we've invented. They've been around for a long time and withstood the test of time. They're actually featured in Applied Imagination from Alex Osborne, who's actually known as the father of brainstorming. And it's very interesting because the quote on his book is, "Imagination is more important than knowledge." And that's a quote by Albert Einstein. I think we can have both in our brains, but this should give you a little bit of fuel for thought. So what you want to do when you're adding thoughts in your brain is, first of all, focus on quantity, which might sound counterintuitive. So in this brainstorming process, what we tend to do is be too critical. Oh, we can't do that. We don't have the budget for this. That doesn't make any sense. When you're brainstorming, now there will be a phase in your brain for evaluation of ideas, but this is not the time to do it. When you're brainstorming, you want to literally get any idea in your brain. Now, and actually this is wonderful for even self-analysis and self-reflection as well. So as the group starts throwing out ideas, you're going to be adding them into your brain, and it's also very important to withhold criticism. Make sure everyone's participating, and not only withhold criticism, but welcome the unusual ideas, because remember, the whole process of brainstorming is to get those new ideas, to inject some innovation, maybe in your next supply chain management cycle or your new product development session. That's what we want to do. And then finally, combining and improving ideas. And this is where connecting things together and dragging and dropping documents, building a knowledge base around everything that you've thought of can be very helpful in the brain. And of course, there's no limit to the number of thoughts. Now, moving from brainstorming, we can talk a little bit about getting things done. And there is a lot of methodologies that you can utilize and follow in your brain, from Six Sigma to David Allen, best-selling author of GTD, Getting Things Done, and we could get a little bit into that methodology. And we also have our own little process that we worked out and mapped, that we call goal-directed thinking here at TheBrain, and this is also process-oriented thinking. So this is really designed for when you have that idea, how to take it from idea to action in a more of a strategic execution fashion. So first thing you want to do, and again, this is a great set of thoughts for those of you that have no internal process, but you want to start getting streamlining your execution. So first thing you want to do in your brain is you create a thought to define your success. What is it we want to do as a team? Do we want to increase sales? Is it your marketing project? What are your key metrics that we're looking for? All of this can go under your success thought in your brain. What is the end result you want? As Stephen Covey would say, you always need to begin with an end in mind. So that's what this area is here. And again, visualization, it in itself is designed for goal visualization, but the software itself lends itself very nicely to that, and that's very important for team alignment and team success. We're in fourth quarter. I know a lot of sales teams are going to be using these types of brains as well to help meet their objectives. So that's what this area is. The other section of goal-directed thinking is obstacles. So, our brain, unfortunately, is going to be, we want it to be a reflection of the real world. It's not just going to be all sunshine and roses and, we've got our brainstorming section. No, this is where you actually get real. So, if you were brainstorming, this is the part in the conversation where reality comes in, where you start talking about potentially securing funding if it's a new product that you're looking, or if you're in middle management or that sort of thing, obtaining management approval is also something that, you can actually have a whole plan on doing that in the brain, and overcoming objectives. So these are all areas, and you can have child thoughts below, subcategories of that, but that's our obstacles area. And, we don't want to be too negative, but we want to be realistic and have some risk management in our brain, and this is where we do it in this type of example. And then moving into project management, which project management is in essence strategic execution. So in some sense, we could have just called this webinar project management. But it's a little bit more, because we don't just want to talk about deadlines. We want to talk about the impact of our deadlines, the impact of our actions. So that's where all these other thoughts are coming in. So, but to the point of project management, you can have those key milestones either as calendar items in your brain or as actual thoughts, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, monthly. You can also map out project methodologies, GTDs, natural planning model. So we've got purpose, mission, all the way to actually in David Allen's session. It's interesting that he has you define purpose and mission first, and then he gets into the brainstorming. So these are all theories to help you facilitate the best that you can be as an individual or as a company. So there's really no right or wrong way to do it. Very interested in hearing from you guys on how your brains look for these types of things. But really today we just want to give you some ideas to get into crafting a brain of strategic execution. So this is David Allen's natural planning project model, and we do have a lot of GTD users that like to use the brain in this way. So that is that, and let me just go back up to the project planning thought. And then one other thing that I like to do when I'm moving forward on any goal, whether this be for an individual project as a group, is have a section in my brain for references and inspirations. So if I'm a designer, maybe I'm designing maybe I'm a landscape designer. I want to have all the greatest designs with links to photos and you know, the ideal scenarios all in my brain. And this can be done on a real simple level too. If you're maybe renovating your kitchen, go ahead and drag and drop your ideals for maybe even the countertops you want, that sort of thing. So this is great for design capacity, product development. But this can also be for, you know, outcomes, strategic outcomes, what company X did and how they achieved a goal or got to market faster. You know, we can look at that sort of thing. So this is an area where not directly related to the project, but this is going to be great reference material for your team as you embark on your journey. And then rarely do we complete these journeys alone. As Joseph Campbell will say, along the way, we need to develop alliances. So this is interesting, and in fact, our student brain, we have a whole section on this as well. But this is important, especially if you're starting a new business or entering a new market space. This is a section where, and people don't think about it, like we're not alone. There are industry associations. There are, you know, trade shows and conferences. You probably have colleagues that share similar vision. Maybe there's an executive who's sponsoring your project that's going to help you guide it all the way to finalization. Maybe friends and family are helping you out. So this is the area where you don't want to overlook your alliances. So these can be thoughts on people or industry, trade shows, things of that nature. And then finally, lessons learned and outcomes. What is the outcome of this project? Were we successful? An interesting thing is even if the project, we don't meet our objectives on what we're doing, this area can become very, very important for future employees, future planning. You can look back and see, you know, where did we go wrong? Where can we improve? Where can we grow as an organization? So that's really from thoughts to results, just to give you some theory on how to construct a mentality and a process of strategic execution and how to do that very effectively in your brain. And again, we're more than happy to share this brain with everyone on the call today, and it is in fact in your Brain 8 as well. But now what we're going to do is move away from theory and actually go through some examples of brainstorming and strategic execution. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about how you can construct a brain that lends itself to smarter execution. So the way we do that is we actually use the parent-child relationship to map out key departments and key domains, as well as people and projects in your organization. So in this particular brain, I have thoughts on everything, but I'm going to be focusing on the business area in my brain. So under business, what you can do is create child thoughts for clients, engineering, marketing, sales, all these key areas of your company. And of course, under business development, you know, everything that you want to create. Now, connected to your departments, you also want to link people who are responsible for those domains. So here I can see, I tend to like to link people as a jump. So every time I click on a thought, it's, the brain moves to the center of the screen. Anything below my active thought, which is my center thought here, is a subcategory. So under business development, I've got a whole industry watch which has competitive analysis, resellers, a whole section here on future trends. I've even got my business managers all linked up here as well. So that's in business development. Now, to the left, I have what we call a jump thought. Now, these are people or projects that are related, but not necessarily a subcategory. So Jim Johnson is a key executive in our company that is advising the whole business development department. So I've got Jim listed as a jump. And if I click on Jim, I can see that Jim reports to Barbara, and Barbara is the CEO of the company. And this is sort of my company mapping in the brain. So mapping people out and where they fit into the overall organization is also very helpful for strategic execution. And not only mapping them out, but each thought can have its own properties. So for instance, if we look at Barbara, her thought type is executive. So let me just go open my window here, and you can see my thought types area below, where I have thought types for competitor. So all these thoughts here are typed as a competitor. I've got a thought type for competitive project. Thought types enable me to have an additional level of semantic meaning on my knowledge, so therefore I'm sort of elevating my level of awareness on business processes that I have going on. So in this case, if I click on the executive thought type in my thought types window here, I can see all my executives displayed that have that type. Now we have a couple ways to put metadata on the thought through thought types and tags. I'm going to cover tags, but the fundamental difference, I know we're going to get this a lot in the Q&A, is a thought type is the single most primary overarching attribute of a thought. You can only have one thought type per thought, whereas thought tags are a little bit more frivolous. I'll often have 4 or 5 different tags on a thought, and tags are things like maybe I'm tagging a bunch of thoughts of what do I need to do in a 6-month time frame. Here's my tag, and I can see all these projects or action items are tagged as in a 6-month time period. And of course, then I can click on that particular thought and move to that area and see what it's connected to as well. So I'm just going to go back and activate Barbara Powers, the CEO. And one of the things that, of course, is great about the brain that you do want to use is the search. So I can move very quickly to different people. So just as quickly as I was on Barbara, if Fred calls and I want to start typing in Fred, he'll pop up here in my search area, and then I can just move really quickly to Fred and see, oh, okay, wow, Fred's pretty busy. He's working on a number of projects. He reports to Terry Mason and Jack Goodman. Well, that's kind of weird. He's reporting to 2 people, and he's managing Anna, John, and Jana as well. So I can glean a lot of information on a brain that actually uses the parent-child and jump relationships to map out my organization. And this is tremendously helpful and powerful. If you're a company or a manager who's trying to put teams together, you might be growing by merger or acquisition, even if you're streamlining operations. So in this case, for instance, I can see it's kind of weird that Fred is reporting to 2 people. I need to change that. I'm going to unlink Fred from Terry, and now we've just got Fred reporting to Jack Goodman, who is our Senior VP of Services. And this is also where you can see tags coming into play. I've got some tags that Andrew, who is a supply chain manager, is a remote employee and web design. And so that's something interesting. If I want to see, for instance, in my tags, who all the remote employees are, I can click on that and I can see, wow, okay, well, we've got a lot of in-house talent. We're also working with some remote staff. Where are they? What are they up to? So just by clicking on that tag, I can go ahead and look at different people. So for instance, I can see that Michael Jones, who is working on our 2015 web designs, he's one of the 2015 web designers I can use, is actually going to work remote. So I'll have to take that into account. Am I fine doing web meetings, or do I need, Michael in the office for our next project? So these are the kind of tags that you can put together. But let me just go back to good old Barbara here, and I just want to go through the people mapping structure for you, because leveraging talent and people and connecting them to projects is also a very key aspect of strategic execution and operational excellence, and we've had a lot of success with mapping these types of things out for companies with great results. You know, in doing this, you're just going to leverage people better. A lot of times it'll foster interdepartmental collaboration too, which is always really nice. So we've got some thought types here. So how did I create a thought type? It's really easy. If I right-click on a thought, I can select to create a new type, or I can select from my existing thought types. So in this case, if I have a new executive, let me just add Bill Williams. Oh, I already have a Bill Williams in my brain. That's the other great thing about the brain. Well, it will show you existing thoughts, so it's going to help you discover information. In this case, I'll just say we're hiring a Bill Brown. Okay, and from here, I can give Bill Brown a thought type, right, just clicking on this item, or I can actually go ahead and do that later. So I've actually just made Bill a thought. I can right-click on Bill and select his thought type. So maybe in this case, Bill is not coming in as an executive. He is coming in at the manager level. So I'm going to give him a thought type of manager. And see, each thought type can have its own unique icon and color so that you can automatically see. So in this set, I can see, wow, I've got several executives. I've got one director, two directors here, and I've got a manager. So it's very nicely, and then I can arrange thoughts by type. So now you can see all the directors are together, and the executives, and then the manager, and then the untyped person. Now, the other thing that I can do with a thought type is, of course, the director thought type. If I want to adjust that, I can go here and go to the thought type director and change that property as well. So if I want to go ahead and adjust the color or icon or anything like that, I can just select the thought type. So now I'm on the thought type, and it says here, this is a thought type. And I don't like this icon. It's a little too busy. I actually added this image. So I want to go back to, and these are built-in icons, back to my people thought. And for director, I actually think I'm just going to give them all the blue icon just to be more consistent with the rest of my people mapping schema. So the cool thing about that is when you change one thought type, it will change all of them at once. So now you can see they're all blue. So now when I'm looking at who Barbara Powers is managing, I've got my two directors now, and the icon matches a little bit better. So just something for you to keep in mind. Now, the other thing that's kind of interesting here is, again, I can start moving things around and looking at who's doing what. So Terry Mason has a lot of managers, but they don't seem to be working on a lot. Like I can click on people and I can see this person's working on partnership. I don't see a lot of activity here. So this is where maybe Kelly needs to be reassigned to marketing. So I might want to go ahead and just start typing in first couple letters of marketing, and now maybe link Kelly to marketing. And, I can go ahead and go in there. And I also, now that Catherine Devers is the strategic manager of marketing, so I actually probably want to put Kelly as reporting to Catherine. So now what I'm going to do is actually change. I don't want Kelly under this group of managers that reports to Terry. So I'm going to unlink Kelly here, and now you can see Kelly has been reassigned. She's going to be a key member of the marketing team reporting to Catherine. And of course, if I want to give her more assignments, maybe I'm going to link her to advertising, online advertising specifically. I can go ahead and make connections. Let me just go ahead and do that. Let me do advertising and connect. And you can see now I've got Kelly working on advertising. So whatever we're doing in advertising, I can sort of leverage her. So that's the way that works. Now I'm going to go up to these different departments. And you can see you can get a lot of what's going on by having all your projects Another area of strategic execution where you can visualize a lot of process is in sales. So I want to just talk a little bit about this area here in sales. So we can go into the sales forecast area. We can actually go into sales probability of closure. You can also go ahead and go into sales playbook or sales area. And let's go to my sales forecasts area and launch documents or spreadsheets and that kind of thing as well. So this whole area can be actually, and I realize that the sales playbook plan that I want to show you is a different brain, so maybe I'll bring that up in Q&A for those of you that are interested. But of course, all this stuff comes together really nicely in the brain. Now, I just want to take a step back and activate my business development thought here. And I've shown you kind of how to put together strategic maps, but what I also want to show you is how to begin your brainstorming session in the brain. So if I want to just go ahead, and maybe my company is focused on ideas for market expansion, you can come in here and just create a new thought, ideas for market expansion. And now from here, getting back to what we discussed as far as just adding in ideas, not critiquing them yet, that's what I'm going to do. So maybe one of my ideas for market expansion is hiring more sales reps. So first of all, I just type in hire in my brain, and then I want to see if we have anything related to that. Well, I do have a thought for hire staff, but I don't necessarily want that. I want to specifically talk about hiring more sales reps. So I'm going to go ahead and put that in my brain. Now I'm going to use a semicolon to add multiple thoughts as one. The other thing that might be interesting is the acquisition of company A. So we'll just say acquisition of company A. So now I've just added a couple thoughts, a couple ideas. I'm not going to start evaluating those ideas, but I'm just doing sort of a brain dump. The other thing that could help us expand our technology partnerships. So I'm going to add that and get that in my brain. Maybe somebody else in the meeting is calling out stuff like increasing advertising. So let me just go ahead. And of course, the brain has spell check, as you can see. And I'm going to use a semicolon just to add a few more thoughts here. We could also do a quality audit on customer service, say for customer service. So you've got those thoughts in my brain. And then finally, maybe opening a new office in Asia Pacific. So here we've got now a total of 6 ideas. I've just gone ahead and captured all those ideas in my brain. And, you know, of course, I can keep going and continue. But now what I can do is I can start to actually use my thought tags to weight certain ideas in terms of their feasibility. So let's first of all look at the acquisition of company X. So I'm going to use tags to sort of evaluate which one of these ideas I do want to execute on. So I've got tags for high, medium, and low cost. I've got tags for time frame, and I've got tags for risk assessment. So in this case, an acquisition of company A is what we call a high investment. That is going to be a lot of capital. So I've immediately tagged that as high investment. It's also something that is going to take at least 6 months. So let me just look at what tags I have in this brain as far as timeline. And it's not something I can do next month, so I'm going to go ahead and say 6-month time frame. So that's pretty far in advance, but we'll go ahead and tag that. So now you can see, as I'm looking at ideas, I can see, well, here's the acquisition. It's 6-month time frame. It's high investment. Whereas, for instance, let's go to quality audit. That's something that is a lower cost. And in terms of time frame, that's something we could actually do next month. So now you can see certain ideas, and I'll just make my screen a little wider here so people can see. We're actually broadcasting at a lower resolution just so everyone can see what's going on. But so acquisition of company A, 6 months time frame, high investment, quality audit for customer service, low cost, something we can start next month. Then you can start to see, what is looking interesting here. And of course, I can continue to do this. So for instance, hiring more sales reps, that is medium cost. Something that is not too terrible an idea. And in terms of anything else I want to add, of whether it's a high, it's a medium investment, it's something that maybe requires, let's say, a 2-month time frame. So let me create a tag for that. And add that in, and I can continue to do that. So opening up an office in Asia, that is something that is going to be a high investment as well. So I'm going to add that in, and that is definitely going to fall in the 6-month category here too. So let me just go back and put 6-month time frame in there also. So now you can see I'm starting to do some analysis on which ideas are making sense, and based on that, then I might even want to start activating some of these projects and start working on them. So hiring more sales reps, that is actually, because it's a medium time frame, that is actually going to become a green lighted project. So you can also add project types in your brain. So I'm going to go ahead and give this a green lighted project. So when I've just created the thought types, you can see now I've got a thought type and 2 tags. Quality audit for customer service, same thing. Let me just go ahead and I'm going to create that as an active project by calling it a green lighted project. So now you can see that I'm organizing. The stuff that is moving forward is appearing first in this list. It's also in green with an icon. The other stuff that's pending research it's just not typed. And that's the other, or you can give them different thought types if you want. For instance, sometimes in meeting, I have something called a hot topic. We're not decided on whether or not we're opening up a new office, but it's certainly generated a lot of buzz and excitement in the meeting, so it's something that we're going to be researching very carefully. Same thing with acquisition of company A, hot topic. So now you can see certain subjects in my idea for marketing expansion you're getting an additional level of analysis and quality through visualization just by using thought types and tags. And then I would be remiss if I didn't talk to you about using the brain as a research tool to make these decisions and start aggregating operationally all the information in a view and a strategic view that makes sense. So let's go with opening up a new office in Asia. So I have some folders here on my desktop. And first of all, there's some visa requirements that I do have some research on in a Word document. So there's a lot of legalities involved with doing this, especially if staff from U.S. is moving to Asia. So I need to drag and drop this document, and I'm just going to put it under my idea for opening up a new office. Now, when I drag and drop a document, what that does is that creates a shortcut to where it is outside of the brain, and you can see in the thought properties it has the path. Now I can do one of two things. I can leave it as a shortcut, or in this case I want to synchronize this brain with other people, so I want them to have access to the file. So in that case I'll have to either move the file in internally, or I can copy that file. In this case I don't need it sitting out in that folder. It wasn't even organized properly, so I've just moved it in to the brain. And, I can continue to do that. We'll need a technology budget to start the office as well as training resources. So in this case, I'm just going to take these 2 documents and copy them. And then I'm going to come over to my brain and paste these documents as well. So you can see now I'm actually working towards developing and doing the research and developing a plan to get this done. I also need to get Vicki Waters, who is our general counsel and director of legal involved. So I need to make a connection to Vicki because Vicki is going to be key in helping us with all this legal. The other thing is this is no longer an idea for market expansion. If we move forward, it's going to be owned by my operations department. So I actually need to go ahead and link it under operations. So now, I mean, yes, I can get to it as a business development opportunity here in business development, but I can also get to it if I'm looking at it from operations. Opening up a new office in Asia is quite interesting. And in fact, there's other things in my brain like building renovations that we've done in the U.S. that will be relevant if we have to do anything like that overseas. So I want to make a connection there as a possibility. So now I'm leveraging existing knowledge that I already have in my brain, and the knowledge is coming together and converging so you can see how I'm going to get this done. Now, the other thing I can do is integrate web resources. So, of course, TheBrain has a nice built-in search. All I can do is hit F1 on my keyboard or launch a search on, what the topic. In this case, I'm looking at opening up a new office in Asia, and I'm just going to go out to the web and search for information on that. And in this case, there's a number of articles on companies who've done this before, how they've done it and so forth. So a couple things here. Somebody else, a company we know opened up a flagship office in Singapore. I might want to reference that, so I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that link into my brain, and now I've got a link to that piece of information. And again, this is sort of that whole idea of building references. Okay, let's look at how some of these other companies have done this too. And then I can, obviously refine my search to maybe something more like how to open a new office in Asia, and, see what goes in. And so this is interesting. There's an article on Forbes.com. That will load, and we'll drag and drop this. And I do want to let you know that any URL, whether that's a URL from Microsoft SharePoint, Dropbox, even each contact in Salesforce.com has a unique URL. All those can be easily added and integrated. So we'll go ahead and add this in. So that's an interesting article on how to open up a business in Hong Kong. So, and sometimes the article gets added with just the name of the magazine, so you can actually go ahead and rename that link. So, I'm going to take that article and I'm going to change this here to how I open a business in Hong Kong. So you can see now I'm sort of building research. And again, let me just go ahead and add one more URL in here. Just backtrack to my search here, just so you can see how nice it is to consolidate knowledge in an operational sense. So let's just go ahead. And Facebook was actually opening up some offices in Asia as well. It was covered in Mashable. So I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that in. So now it's interesting. I've got some research going on, stuff for people to read. I've got my budgets, my visa requirements, my people that I'm working with. This has really gone in, 5 minutes from something that was an idea to something that we haven't executed on it yet, but you can see how it's come together very nicely. So that's this brain. Before I pass presenter to Matt, there's another brain that I want to show you that is a little bit more formalized in capturing process. This particular brain is called DBL Equity, and DBL Equity is an investment company. And I wanted to show this brain because we have a lot of companies that have different processes, and all these processes can be mapped out in the brain to streamline your operations. So for instance, if I click on deals in process, going from investment to actually closing a deal is very complicated. But with this brain, this equity company has managed to visualize all the steps to get new business analysts up to speed faster and to ensure that no step is overlooked. So we've got due diligence. So in due diligence, You have to do a management background check. You also have to look at intellectual property, industry analysis. So all of that information is linked. And in structuring the deal, you have letter of intent. Underwriting, you've got all kinds of template documents of what needs to be done. And what you need to do in the underwriting phase is you need to develop a financial model, fill out all your insurance forms, as well as complete a risk assessment report. So these are the template documents. And then they would also have the companies with those documents completed in this section as well. And then closing these deals could get complicated as well. Different escrow companies that we're working with, legal, finalizing contract, all that can be done in the brain. And I think with that, I'm going to pass the presenter over to you, Matt.
Absolutely. Great. And Shelley has shown us some really great examples of how we're visualizing all of our information within the brain. And I'd like to share with you a few additional features so that we can take that information that we've seen, the thought types, the thought tags, all those different file attachments, and take that visualization one step further with what we call a link type or a link label. So it's really great to get all of your information into your brain, visualize it for easy access, better understanding, but also defining the relationships between two pieces of information is sometimes just the one critical piece of information that you're looking for when you're mapping out all of your digital information. And so this particular brain that I'm sharing with you is Starling Labs. So this is a pharmaceutical brain. And this brain, let me take you on just a really quick tour, has all of my digital information about our products that we're producing, the research that we're doing, the people that we're working with. You can see that I can go down into my sales department and pull up all of my presentations, my customer database, and so on, the medical conditions I'm researching, and most importantly, the actual products. So the products that my pharmaceutical organization produces, I've got all of their documentation, their labels, case studies, the people that are experts in those fields. So when distributors or doctors are calling us with questions about our products, we've got all the answers on our fingertips. And I'm sharing this brain across all of my sales teams so that we all have access to the same information. We'll talk a little bit more about sharing the brains a little bit later in the demo. But first, you can see here, just right in my pharmaceutical area, I have all of my competitor information. So it's important not only to be educated on my own products, but on my competitors as well. So I can give side-by-side analysis and talk about why ours may be better and more helpful for whatever the client or distributor happens to be looking for, help to make that sale. But also, notice that I'm keeping track of my in-house products as well as my subsidiary companies. So my large organization also has subsidiary companies. If we don't have exactly what our distributor or client is looking for, rather than sending them off to one of our competitors, hey, why don't you try some of our subsidiaries? They've got some great products. Maybe this is what you're looking for, and I'll send them in that direction. But let me go ahead and just select one. I'm going to click on dialoxin. And this is the key that I'd like to share with you. Notice right away that here I am on dialoxin. I've got all of my digital information. I've got a link over to Tim. He's a team member in the sales department that's an expert that wrote the label on dialoxin. But also notice that it is linked to coronary artery disease with a link type that says non-FDA approved. And it's linked up to our atrial fibrillation with FDA approved. And the important component there is that if I am receiving a call from a distributor that is in the United States, legally, if they are looking for a product that can help their organization or their group of doctors or hospitals with coronary artery disease, I cannot provide for them information about dialoxin. It is non-FDA approved for coronary artery disease. It is, however, FDA approved for atrial fibrillation. So if that's the question regarding atrial fibrillation, absolutely dialoxin is the product that I'm going to go for. Now, I didn't need to open up the label. I didn't need to read through the case studies, the clinical trials. I didn't need to open any documents. I can see right there on the link labels. One is FDA non-approved, the other is FDA approved. Very clear and simple, and it's going to help me get to my solution faster to help my client or help the person that I'm working with. Now, obviously, we can't just call this thought type, create a new thought type. This is an in-house pharmaceutical that is FDA approved, because for some medical conditions, it's not FDA approved. So the link is really what contains the information that I'm looking for. And that information really can't be on the thoughts themselves, but has to be on the relationship between the two. So that's why we create these link labels. And notice also when I click on a link between two thoughts, now I've clicked on the link between atrial fibrillation and dialoxin. Notice that it highlights the link. This is where I would go if I want to set up a new link type. Let me click on that again. So I'll click on it twice to go in to maybe assign it to a new link type if I'd like, or edit the link. Open the link window or the link notes. So we can actually provide notes for individual links as well. So I've got information about the relationship between dialoxin and atrial fibrillation. I don't just want to leave this information on the dialoxin thought, because that might say, hey, dialoxin has these side effects and works under these conditions. That's not the case. It has these side effects and works under these conditions when being used for atrial fibrillation. I can't leave that information on the atrial fibrillation, because then it's which product am I referring to. So it's the link, once again, that contains that information. So I can actually just leave it highlighted, and down below I can go into my notes area. And when I'm in the notes area with a link highlighted, I'm entering notes for that specific link. So I can simply say this was finalized. Maybe I just want the date. How long has it been FDA approved? In 1998, etc. I can leave some information down there so that when I do share this brain with other team members, they know specifically details about the relationship between these two thoughts. And of course, when I click away, notice I click on dialoxin, and I've got digital information appearing down below about dialoxin, the Starling Labs product, et cetera, et cetera. I click on atrial fibrillation. I've got information about statistics with atrial fibrillation, but the link between the two, that's where my notes are on the relationship between the product and the actual medical condition. So let's go ahead and create a new link type. Now, also, how can we search for all FDA-approved drugs? I just saw that question come up, and Doug, I thought it was a different question, but I will get to that. You can run reports for linked types as well. So that's how we can find all thoughts connected with a specific link, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But let's go ahead and click back to, let's say we're on dialoxin, and we can see our FDA-approved and FDA non-approved products. Let's say we can want to look at other, here's coronary artery disease. An FDA-approved drug is Swift. So again, more information about Swift. Swift is now undergoing clinical trials for another medical condition, and that is high blood pressure. So right now, it is not a product that's used for high blood pressure, but it is undergoing medical trials. Therefore, that opens the door. We can now start talking to our clients. Hey, would you like to be involved in the clinical trials? Sign the right paperwork, the right documentation, and your patients can be part of a clinical trial for Swift. And let's make that connection, high blood pressure. So there's high blood pressure. That is one of my medical conditions that I'm tracking here in my brain. And I can now click on the link between the two thoughts. And again, if I click on it, right-click on it, or do 2 clicks, I can open up the pop-up window that allows me to add a new link type. I don't have a link type yet for high blood pressure, or excuse me, for clinical trials. So let's go ahead and create one, a new link type for clinical trials. So now that I've created it, I can actually modify, and I really like to do this with my link types so that they stand out. Sometimes I just leave them with the default colors of the links. you may have noticed what really works for me is to have a green link for FDA approved and a red link for non-FDA approved. So stop and go. Clinical trials, that would probably be a yellow link. So with the link highlighted, I can now leave notes down below on that individual link, but on the link tool tab, notice that we've got the type is being identified as clinical trials. And this is the key right here, this little button that is next to my link type clinical trials. I click on that and it opens up the properties window for clinical trials. So right there from the link window down below is where I can open up the properties for a specific link type. So clinical trials, let's say, is always going to be yellow. Some fun things that you can do with this is make them even larger so they really stand out. I'm really focusing on all my clinical trials, so I want this link to stand out. This is a universal change. So if I come back a month, 2 months from now and say, all right, I'm not so much focused on clinical trials, now we need to focus on our products that are FDA approved, I can go back and modify how all clinical trials links look. I can change the color once again, or drop the thickness of the link down so it doesn't stand out so much. But I'm going to leave that for now so you can see those yellow links really stand out. So clinical trials between high blood pressure and Swift. And now I'll know when I come to a particular product. Here, once again, we've got some that are in clinical trials, some that are FDA approved, and then non-FDA approved. And so I'm identifying my common relationships between thoughts. Now, you can always just add one individual link label to two individual thoughts. So I don't need to always set up a link type. Link type is really for when you're going to assign that relationship over and over again multiple times within the same brain. A simple link label, let's say I just want to define a relationship between Swift and, let's say we actually have someone working in our service department, Sam. I don't have a Sam. Let's say Bill. There, I do have a Bill. So let's say Bill is actually taking Swift. He's been prescribed Swift. He's on the clinical trial for high blood pressure, taking Swift. That's a really great resource, actually, for us to have because we can get his feedback. How do you like it? Oh, it's working great. I'm keeping all my levels the way they should be. I feel healthier than ever. It's fantastic. So we've got someone that we can refer back to if a big client is on the sort of on the fence. We can say, hey, if you want to really talk to someone that knows more about this, here's our person. So, of course, we can put him in touch with Dave, the scientist that developed Swift, Carol, the label editor that is a brainiac and knows all about the product and what it is prescribed for, what it can do, what it can't. But, hey, here's Bill, a real person that has actually been prescribed Swift, has taken it, and has had great benefits as a result. So, again, I'm clicking on the link between Bill and Swift, and rather than creating a link type, this doesn't happen too often. Not a whole lot of people in our organization are actually taking the products. So I'm just going to edit the link. Rather than setting up a new link type, Bill is taking, so I just type in taking Swift. And now when I'm talking with the client about Swift, oh, you want to know how it was developed and what the actual ingredients were? You need to talk to Dave, the scientist. You want to talk about the label. Can you take it a certain number of hours before a meal or after a meal? What are the side effects and so on? Carol's the person. How do people feel about taking Swift? I'm going to send them over to Bill. Now, that is a piece of information that I only need to know about when I'm actually on the topic of Swift. When I'm on the topic of Bill, my top priority isn't, hey, how's it going with the products, the medicine that you've been prescribed by your doctor? We're talking about Bill's other projects that he's working on. Maybe he's a writer and working on documentation for a completely different brand of products. So I only need to know about this product when I'm focused on Swift. So therefore, I'm going to set up a directional link. So once again, when I click the link between the two thoughts that highlights the link, my Thought Tool tab down below changes from the Thought Tool tab to the Link Tool tab. And I can modify this particular link. So there you can see I can change whatever it is I've labeled the link. I can change the thickness just on this link alone since it's not a link type. But I am going to set up a directional link, and I'm also going to make it one way. So first, this arrow here is a toggle switch, left, right, or open. So by default, all links are open. You can see them from both relationships. If you connect A to B, you can see B from A, you can see A from B. It's an open link. A directional link is simply an identifier. So I would make it, maybe if I was just going to leave it open, I would say Bill is taking Swift. So I've got the arrow going in that direction. I see this a lot for people that are creating org charts. This person reports to this person. This person is responsible for these products or these projects. So you see the arrow going in the flow of the direction. And notice when it's highlighted, if you can see, that's actually an animated highlight. So I can see those little, we call them marching ants. The ants are marching from Bill towards Swift. And if I turn it the other direction, you see the ants marching the other way. But I'm going to make this a one-way link. This is telling me I'm only going to see Bill connected to Swift when I'm on the Swift thought. When I go over to Bill, I will not see that he is connected to Swift. So I've checked that one-way box, and let's click up through our support team. I did that a little quickly. So let's say I'm on Starling Labs, team members. I want to look at my support team, assign some new projects. Let's see who's busy, who's not. I'll click on Bill's thought. As you can see, Bill is an expert on atrial fibrillation, and he's training some Mike on this product as well, the products that we have for atrial fibrillation. I don't see that Bill is taking a product called Swift. That's not important to me right now. But if I come in from Starling Labs and I go down to my pharmaceuticals, let me minimize my tools down below. And I go into Swift. I'm talking with someone about Swift. Now I do see the relationship. So there I can see that Bill is taking Swift. So there's the ants marching. And when I click on Bill, because I was just on that thought, now I can see the two at the same time because I just came from the Swift thought. So it stays on the screen for me. But if I just click on support and down to Bill, once again, it's not there. That's not something I need to know about. It's a one-way link. So the link will only be visualized when I come from the one direction. So once again, coming from Swift, there's Bill who is taking this particular product. So I hope those link directions and one-way links can help you better identify and clarify the relationships between your thoughts. Now, I also mentioned a few times here that I'm building a brain that is a collaborative project. Multiple users are going to be using this brain. So the great thing about the brain is that everything that Shelley and I have done here in our brains today is being done on our local machine. I'm running the Brain app locally, but I have the option to synchronize this brain. So I'll click on the Sync tool button up above and go ahead and sync this up to the cloud. And there are many benefits to syncing this to the Brain cloud. Benefit number one, I'll have online access. So from my phone, I'll be able to log in to the Brain, maybe even take my iPad to a meeting, log in and navigate through the Brain that I've created and add notes, add new content right there from my iOS device because it's reading the Brain that is available on the cloud. The same goes true if I visit another desk or a kiosk at the airport and I've got internet access and I need to look up a phone number, some digital information that I've got in my Brain. It's accessible to me online. So I can go online to my Brain. I'll wait till this syncs, and then I'm going to go ahead and open up. Here, I'll open it from here. So here's our website, and I'm actually going to log in to my account. Let's get the two side by side at the same time. So here's my local version, and here is my online version that I'm logging into. And I'm going to go to my account page. And these are, first that was my team page. Those are brains that I'm sharing with other team members. Here's Starling Labs now available to me online. So I'm in my web interface. And of course, I can go into my pharmaceuticals, and let's go into Swift. And there we can see Swift. Bill is taking Swift, so I can still get to that information. The information that I just inputted today, I've now synced it, and it's available to me online. All my files would be down below. If I've got notes for Bill, I can click on Edit, and as you can see, I've got a full notes editor, or I can actually add new content, so Bill's new project. New project he'll be working on. I can enter that in the web interface. And once again, when I sync from the desktop, if I go back to Bill and sync, that new information will be available for me on my desktop as well. But also, another advantage is that I can download this brain and keep it in sync from another machine. So I've got access to my brain not only from my, here I am at work today on my work desktop. I've got some work to do this coming weekend. I sync it to the cloud. I download it to my MacBook Pro at home. And again, I just pick up right where I left off. I've got all my digital information kept in sync from my laptop at home. And finally, another benefit to syncing is that I've upgraded my account to TheBrain services. So not only do I have access to my brain, but I can go out onto the cloud. So now I'm in the web interface, and I'm going to go into settings. And as you can see right now, I'm keeping this brain private. That's the default. All new brains that go online into the cloud are private. It is a secure upload, storage, and download of the information. And now, though, I can either share this privately with another user. I'm going to go ahead and maybe even list. Maybe I've got proprietary information. I want to keep it private, but share this with Shelly. So I'll type in Shelly's name. Shelly is part of my, I believe she's part of my team. If not, I can uncheck that. So notice as I type in a few letters, I see all the potential matches. There's Shelly. She is part of my team. And this is a toggle switch. I can make Shelly a reader, or because we both have TheBrain services, I can now make Shelly an editor of this brain. She can do the same changes that I can do online or sync to her local version, download a local version. I'll go ahead and save this, and it'll actually send Shelly an email welcoming her to start editing this brain as an editor. There, I'm being notified she's received an email. And she'll be able to add new content to this particular brain. And, of course, then from the reports, we now have accountability. I know who's making which changes and when. So as Shelly, when she downloads this brain, I can run into my reports and refresh. And I'll actually see a list in the modification details on the right. Since I've just added her, she hasn't made any modifications yet. But if Shelly modifies some thoughts or some content, I'll see this thought was modified by Shelly on a certain date and time. So I'll see that actually in the reports. And just to circle back, and this is a nice segue into the question panel, because I did see the question from Doug earlier, can you find all FDA-approved products? Certainly, that is done in the reports as well. And so I'm going to go into my reports and say, all right, show me all link types that are FDA-approved. So these are any thoughts that contains a link that is FDA approved. And I can quickly get to those thoughts to review what their relationships are to other products and other thoughts in my brain.
All right, great. Well, I think we covered a lot of ground. For those of you that have to leave on the hour, we do have a recording of this session. That being said, we have a couple questions that did pop up in the Q&A that I want to review as a group together and just go through, and we'll continue for another 10 minutes here. So a lot of questions on what you were doing with link types. Really great stuff, Matt. A question actually from Bob. Matt, when the link properties box is open, what are some examples of what you enter below in the box?
Sure. So notice by default, as you're clicking through your brain, you have a series of tool tabs on the bottom. One of them is your thought tool tab. So this is where you're going to see your file attachments if you've got a label for a thought. So let's go to clinical trials. And maybe the label was the date they were completed. in 2014. So that's what I'll see when I mouse over. That's a label for the thought and all the attachments down below. But when I click on a link, here's the answer to your question. When I click on the link to highlight that link, notice that that thought tool tab becomes the link tool tab. And we have pretty much the same group of options. I can click on that link. Let me just refresh the window. I'll come back up to Dialoxin here. So I click on that link, and now I can enter a label. I can actually add file attachments. Notes will go on the link, but I've got file attachments. I can change the color. Pretty much the same thing I can do with a thought, I can now do with a link. So I'm just going to make this a purple link for whatever reason. Default, I'll make it stand out a little bit thicker. It's something that I'm focusing on, so I want to draw my attention. I can give it a direction. And if I'd like, I can drag and drop a file attachment, an attachment that will only be visible when I'm highlighting that particular link. And here's my label for the link. I'll just call it highlight.
Okay, great. And then I think it's going to be important, too, to distinguish, since we've been focusing on link notes, just to talk about general notes, because a lot of people are mentioning the box below. So obviously, and notes are fabulous, in terms of research and capturing even to-do checklists for operations. So Matt, if you have some notes examples as well that you can go through, just a note per thought, I think that might be helpful just to make sure everyone's clear on note for thought versus, link stuff that you can do as well.
Absolutely. So let's just stay focused in this particular area of my brain. I've got a focus on Dialoxin, and down below are all my notes about Dialoxin when I click on case studies. I don't have any notes for case studies. I've got a document, but no notes. But if I want to add some notes for case studies, let's say we need a new round. Our case studies are a little dated, so I've got some tasks to take care of. Here's something that I like to do, and since Shelley specifically mentioned GTD, getting things done, David Allen always likes to have check boxes. Is this task completed? What's next? What needs to get done? And what's already been done? And we do that with check boxes in the notes tab. That's one way we can approach that. So for case studies, I've got my task list, which is find a new group of customers. Maybe I also want to check with distributors. They might know of some people. Check with distributors. And also I'll want to make sure a few doctors are signed on. Sign on at least 2 doctors, and so on. So here's my checklist of projects that need to take place, and as they are completed, let's say right away I send out an email to a couple of our doctors that we have relationships with in different areas of the country. I get 2 to sign on. I'm going to simply check that off the list. I've got my 2 doctors, and I really like to timestamp everything that I do in the notes. That's a personal opinion. I timestamp things just so I know when that was completed. Now, who are the 2 doctors? That information would probably be in my 2015 or 2016 case study document, or I can leave that here as well, Dr. Sam and Dr. Betty. So whatever my doctors are, I'll leave that information there. All thoughts and ideas I have about that document or about that project or person would always go in the notes. And here's the key thing to remember. You can keep those on individual thoughts. So as I'm adding notes, those notes are being added just for the current active thought. If I go back to Dialoxin, those are the notes for Dialoxin. Every thought has its own notes tab. It's like an ongoing journal about that particular subject matter, but also what I'm highlighting today is that every link, and I'll click on the link between Dialoxin and case study, every link can have its own grouping of notes too. So now I'm just taking notes about the relationship between Dialoxin and case studies. Case studies, I don't need to know about all my old case studies, but just the history of Dialoxin case studies. We have had 20 case studies over the years. So just some information about the success we've had with having good quality case studies for our products. and I'll just leave that information there on the notes. So once again, when I share this this particular brain with other users, with Shelley, with other members of my team, they'll be aware of the relationships and all the details of the relationships between case studies and our products, or this particular product, from the notes on the link here as well.
All right, great. And an earlier question from Ernest actually is talking a little bit more about the methodology about thought types and tags classification. His question is, how wise is it to think about thought types and tags with color and icon attributes in advance? And, you know, I responded, I like to do that. Like in my people example, if I know I'm going to have, for instance, HR mapping, director, manager, executive, I want, you know, a different color for a different level, you know, a level of management, and I want them all to sort of match but be slightly different. So, you know, to the extent you can do that, it really does make your brain more professional. But that being said, I know other users that go from one extreme where they just have a set schema for thought types and they don't deviate, and sometimes that can be inhibiting as well. But actually, when you're setting up specifically a team brain, we do encourage what we call a model, which is understanding your processes mapped out. You have defined thought types and tags for either a business process, level of staff or personnel, and it's like an enhanced culture or awareness that becomes imbued in that brain. So, you know, to the extent that you can do that, it's fabulous. And I think it's important to point out, though this is more of a personal brain 101 thing, which Matt is hosting in class tomorrow, if any of you can make it, to start creating a brain from ground up. That's wonderful. But Matt, I think it would be great to show the business brain template, maybe load that, and also show just the import of the tags and types specifically, because we talked a lot about tags
Sure.
and types. And a lot of you might be like, wow, do I have to create all these from scratch? Well, if your business is very unique, I mean, if you're doing drug research or that sort of thing, then you will obviously have to create specific ones. But we actually have some generic ones that work for 80% of you know, standard businesses that you can leverage that, you know, we want you to know about.
Yes, and Lee actually had the question when, Shelley, when you were modeling at the very beginning of the class, the brainstorming brain, really liked it and wanted to get a copy. And here again, you can. It's actually built into your brain. So the business example that Shelley mentioned, now this can be imported into an existing brain, or you can use these templates to build a new brain from scratch. And you can create as many different brains. You can see I toggle back and forth between different brains. I've got all my brain buttons at the top of the screen. So feel free to create a sample brain with the business brain, see if you like the looks of it and want to add on to that. Or if you like it so much, hey, I want to incorporate this into my existing brain that I had previously built. Both options are available for you. So I'm going to create a new brain from scratch. And notice that as I type in the new brain name, I'll call this my Business 101. And notice that I've got this little box checked. If you don't have that checked, you're not going to see the template. So check the template box, and you'll see this drop-down list of other brain templates that you can pre-build your brain with. And just to give you a little preview here, the brainstorming brain that Shelley demonstrated earlier, that's available to you here as a template. Or if you just want to bring in the existing thought types and tags from the business template, that's another option for you at the bottom. So no thoughts in this business brain, just types and tags being brought into your existing brain. So here I'm going to start a new brain with business and say OK. And this will take just a minute because it's going to pre-populate this new brain with a grouping of business-related thoughts. And we tried to create some sample brains that basically had a wide variety of possible topics that a person in business might be interested in. But the great thing about it is you can go back and modify this. You don't have to stick with our template of the way a business is modeled. Maybe you don't call it marketing. You call it community relationships. No problem. You can change the thought name, retype it, change the thought type. You can delete. I'm not even interested in research. All my products have been researched and built. I don't need a branch or an area of my brain for research and development. You can actually go in and delete that information or add your own. So it's still in the process of building. It's a fairly large brain, and here it is, my business. I've got it all right in front of me, and now I can go in and start adding my own clients. So clients, VIP clients, I've got 5, 6 VIP clients. They're going to go in this area, and I can just add them right in, Joe and Sons, etc. So add in my new clients. I can go over to my sales team, Vice President of Sales. That is Betty Smith. So I'm going to edit the thought name, VP, or put that on the label, VP of Sales. So I'm making this brain my own. There's Betty Smith, VP of Sales, connected to the sales thought, where I'm going to start bringing in all of my own documents and information. And again, an area where I'm really not interested in flushing a particular category out, territories. I only have one territory. That's the area I work with. I'm a small business right now. I don't need that thought. Not a problem. I'm just going to right-click and select to forget this particular thought. So forget, and I won't be visualizing that thought anymore. And again, I can continue on making this a reflection of my own business within my brain. And once again, if you want to add one of these templates into an existing brain, so now I've already got my business brain open, I can click on File and select to import one of these templates. So here are my template brains. I can select which one I want. I also want the brainstorming, the brain that you saw Shelley building earlier or navigating through. I can just click on brainstorming and add that right in. It'll be a child thought right here off of business. So let's bring in all of the brainstorming thoughts and say OK. And if it finds any duplicates, which it just did, it found a thought type that we used in both brains, distributor. I can select to overwrite, skip. I'll select always overwrite.
Yeah, and that will happen if you bring two templates in, because I've specifically put all same template thought types in multiple brains.
Yeah. So just a few times you'll need to say always overwrite the thought types, the link types, the tags. But there you can see 3 clicks, and I'm now incorporating this other entirely sort of separate subject into this existing brain, and all those thoughts are coming into this brain as well. I'm creating a mega brain just with the templates.
All right, great. And in terms of kind of getting more into mass editing, creating brains from scratch, I do want to remind you to join us tomorrow, actually, every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time for the Brain 101 class. That's a great class. And actually, due to class size, we can actually demo a lot more of the questions that come in because the class sizes are a little smaller. So if any of you are on this call today and, you know, we're getting a little over your head with thought types and business process mapping and all that kind of stuff, and you need to take a step back, drop into 101. So they're a great resource, a free resource for all users. So do take advantage of that. And I think in terms of the Q&A, we have covered everything that we need to cover. So once we're done importing the brainstorming brain, we're going to close the session. And again, if you're on the Brain 8, you have the brainstorming brain. That's what I started with. The business brain, and I don't know if you can click around in the brain while the import's happening, you remember the sales stages that I was going to show you? If you go into sales, Matt, under, just in sales, I guess, deal stages, this is a nice area as well, fitting well right into our whole process mapping, where from phase 1 to phase 6, from building a report, a presentation, all the way to close deal, you can actually visualize stages in your pipeline, which is very effective for salespeople. And it looks like the brainstorming template was imported. So if you just go there real quick and give everyone a preview and close the webinar on that note, coming full circle back to that brainstorming and goal-directed thinking brain.
There it is. So you may recall seeing these thoughts in Shelley's brain earlier. This is all part of, it exists right now in your brain. You just need to import this template either into your existing brain or into a new brain. and all of that information would be is available to you. Thinkers and Methodologies, Alex Osborne, Steve Covey, all of them that we talked about earlier today, it's all here in some of these templates.
All right, great. Well, with that, we're going to end today's session. And before we do, Matt, any other final words of wisdom for all the attendees that are still on with us well past the hour here?
Sure. I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Again, I'll be teaching the Brain 101 tomorrow. So if you are a beginner and want another sort of, jump into, this time jumping into the shallow end. So starting simple, going through all the basics. We'll be talking about that tomorrow, and again, addressing and answering any questions that you may have during the QA. Feel free to sign up for the Brain 101. We'd be happy to hear from you.
All right, great. Well, with that, I wish you all well in smarter execution, and now you have no excuses for not getting things done or falling into that execution trap. So I hope this session's been helpful, and feel free to write into support or email us with any questions you might have on creating your strategic brain for operations. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.